Welcome to the show, Brain Health, Unchaining Your Pain. I am really excited to talk to Mark Edmondson, who's on the show today. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Ruth. Lovely to meet you.
And for those that don't know Mark, I actually connected with him through LinkedIn, and Mark has a phenomenal story to share. He grew up in the northwest of England, lived for his sport, loved his life, and felt very lucky with his lot. After a year travelling and seeing the world, he embarked on a successful commercial career and focused on living life well. And I think we'll have some stories to tell behind that. Life was really good. And then 5 years ago, he was told he had stage 4 terminal cancer diagnosis and less than a year to live. He now lives life differently, but the same. What an amazing story, Mark.
Thank you very much.
So I would love to dive into your story, because there's not very many people that can get in front of the camera and talk about a stage 4 terminal diagnosis 5 years after that experience. And I know we're talking about, you just had the last treatment to remove cancer that was still in your system, and fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, absolutely. Yes,
that will last for a long time. So I'd love to hear your story, but before we do that, based on your journey, what for you would you say is optimal brain health for you personally?
I think optimal brain health for me is the ability to understand how you work, how you think, how you look at life, how you take on challenges. I think being able to make decisions, not saying you second guess yourself, but to make decisions with the view that you are then looking back at it and going, I know why I made that decision. The reason was this. This is with either the fallout or maybe from previous trauma or previous experience. It's molded me and created me to be like I am, and therefore how am I then reacting? And am I reacting in a way that I like and I'm happy, and therefore remove sort of any anxiety or stress or worry, and try and live to be the person I want to be, but understand who I am in the process.
Do you know, I really love that, because I don't think people take the time to understand themselves. And I love that you drew out the fact that it's important to understand why you are the person that you are, and then also to reflect on, okay, this is my lot as I am now, but who do I want to be, and what do I need to do in order to get there, and what changes do I need to make?
Yeah.
And people kind of think that, you know, particularly with your diagnosis, that what people say is what it is, and that's your lot.
Yeah.
But we don't have to listen to everything that people say, and we've got an awful lot of control over the outcome of our lives. We own ourselves.
Yeah.
We own the outcomes that we have in our life, and our brain is an incredibly powerful tool that can really either hurt us or really empower us and help us overcome phenomenal challenges. So I'd love to explore your journey. Would you mind taking us on your journey back to maybe let's start with when you discovered that something wasn't right? What happened there?
So I discovered something wasn't right probably about 6 months, maybe 7, 8 months prior to being diagnosed. I think, just to sort of touch on another slight point here, I went to the doctors multiple times, with the view that I wasn't right. I was told it was irritable bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay.
Just not healthy gut. There was just, maybe it was just a bug at one point. And it was only until I pushed and forced the issue that I was like, look, I really would like to have a scan or something just to check that everything is working okay, because I don't feel well. And, we're told and encouraged to go and see people when we're not well. And because of
which is often quite difficult challenge for men as well, isn't it? Because I know, I don't want to be, there's an ism, but it's much harder for guys to admit that they need to go and get help often than it is for women.
100%, and that sort of support network doesn't exist for men to encourage men to do that. So That in itself was quite challenging. There was a couple of times where I was just like, I'll be fine. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it. They're obviously not that interested. And I kept being told, because of my age, it couldn't be anything more significant than, like I said, IBS or irritable bowel disease. So I was pushed back anyway. Finally, I managed to get a scan. And I also had a CT scan, an MRI scan, and a colonoscopy. And it was a colonoscopy that discovered my cancer. So initially I was told it was colon cancer, and I was like, okay, colon cancer can be treated. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'll be able to deal with this. Perhaps very well, perhaps not perhaps 100% very naively, quite, I guess, also quite ignorant to the situation. 4 days later, I went to see the nurse to sort of review my situation, my diagnosis, or my prognosis, sorry. And the nurse phoned me up that morning and said, "Oh, the doctor's going to come and join the call." And I was, again, naive.
Was this over the telephone?
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh,
okay.
It's good to see the doctor cares." That's very nice. And then I was driving over with my wife, and I was like, "Oh, I spoke to the nurse this morning. The doctor's going to join the call." And she went, "Oh, that's not a good sign." I know we both sort of suddenly at that point it suddenly changed. The tone and the mood changed to a bit more like a lot more concern. Anyway, saw the doctor, and very professional, but sort of delivered the news that I had between 9 months to a year tops to live.
Wow.
Very unfortunately, it spread to my liver. I had basically I think about 33, 34 tumours in my liver, and that my future didn't look great. The next move was something that I found, and I still find, quite a negative experience, something that still bothers me. But the very next day, and I know the intent was good in that they were looking for me, but the palliative care team came round from a local hospice. I'd obviously not really digested the news at all, and they started talking to me about how I should communicate to my children. I've got an 8-year-old and an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, but at the time there would have been a 3-year-old, 5-year-old. How I've got to communicate to them, how I've got to sort of deal with it in a sort of work context, a wider life.
Wow, the very next day.
Yeah, and truthfully, I feel like there's sort of trauma might be an extreme word, but a minor trauma attached to that, where I just couldn't deal with it. I had to go straight to bed. I was not in a good place with it. And
no, I'm not surprised.
I wanted to get my own head around it rather than being told that these were all the things I needed to do. And suddenly I've gone from a week ago or even 2 days ago to being I'll be absolutely fine to, oh my goodness, I've got less than a year to go. So it was a big, obviously it's quite shocking. I think as that sort of progressed, I'm very fortunate. I've got a lot of good friends, network. So a lot of people came to visit me and were very encouraging, very supportive in that sort of next month. To the point where I then had my best friend come and stay for the weekend to help out with the children, and just be around and be there to support. And he was sort of commenting to me, and he was just like, "You seem to be dealing with this like you've just been told you've got a common cold. I can't get my head around it. I'm angry at you. I'm really upset at you. I don't understand what's happening here. You seem to be still quite upbeat and quite positive, and I'm absolutely broken by this news. Like, what's going on?" And I was like, I didn't really have a great answer. It was more just look, this is what I've been told. I've got to deal with it the best I can. I believe if I'm positive, that's going to create a good impact on the people around me. So my wife, my kids, I feed off their energy. I'm quite an extrovert person, so I felt that would give me a lot of value if I had people being supportive in the right way. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I didn't want people to feel, to be sort of mollycoddling me. I wanted people to be saying the right things, going, okay, you can do this, and what can we do to help, and what practical things can we do? And off the back of that, you then start to have conversations with people who go, well, maybe you should speak to a nutritionist, or maybe you speak to someone around holistic therapies, maybe understand, get second or third opinions from the medical world, and trust the resource and trust the people who are, paid well or do their jobs very well, to try and help and support you. And I embarked on that journey. I went from, I wouldn't say an unhealthy diet, but certainly not a diet that I would have these days. I've transitioned from, I went straight to vegan, and and organic,
which is a brilliant thing to do, by the way, because going vegan and organic, given your circumstances, giving yourself the best chance to build your immune system in a natural way, so that it can, you know, strengthen its defenses for the fight that you had ahead.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, that's since transition to being just vegetarian now. So there's a point where I also needed to manage my weight. My treatment causes me to lose weight. So there was, you know, my oncologist wanted me to then transition some more protein into my diet. But fundamentally, you know, I'm still eating what I would consider a much healthier, balanced diet than I was doing previously. So I went to have, you know, holistic therapies. I went.
What did you do? What was the kind of? Because I know you mentioned that, you know, and it's really hard, isn't it, for friends and family where you've got someone who's been given a terminal diagnosis to kind of know how to react and support you to do what you want to do, not what they think you should do, which can be quite different. But what's right for you? What was the kind of tipping point for you to go, okay, I'm going to find out how I can fight this?
I mean, look, the tipping point was my children. Like, I mean, me and my wife have a wonderful relationship. We get on exceptionally well, but she's an independent woman. Like, she lives the life she wants to live. I support and I'm a part of that, but it's still her life. I know that whilst I would never wish it upon her, I know that she would be able to cope without me. But my children at that age, at 3 and 5, I was just like, I need to do everything I possibly can to stick around as much as I possibly can. And just to sort of rewind a little bit in life, when I was 10 years old, my mum suffered quite a significant depression. Had an indirect traumatic effect on me and has molded me quite significantly as a person, as I've since found out.
And she was a what? Sorry, I missed what you just said there.
She was just she suffered very significant depression. She was
and was that before your age of 10 or?
From between the ages of 10 to 16. I mean, she still is a depressive person, but she's now found a way to deal with that and manage it, and through the balance of medical and brain. Further to that, then fast forward to, so I've had that experience. Fast forward to, I was 31, 32. My second boy was born. He was born 3.5 months prematurely, so he was born like 1 grams, 3 ounces. 5 years prior to that, he would not have existed. He wouldn't have had a chance. We were very fortunate, but he came through that, and again, it was another traumatic experience for me. But I think that was also, he's also my inspiration. It seems quite odd to say who my inspiration is.
What's your son's name?
Wilf.
Wilf, what a lovely name. Oh,
yeah.
So that was a really traumatic experience. So I think it's really important to note here is that, you know, obviously you had your childhood trauma from you know, seeing your mum struggling with depression, and we often it's a real problem for kids because they want to help their parents or do what they can to not make the situation worse. And so you end up holding on to your own emotional trauma because of the fact that you don't want to add layers to your parents' already big struggles, which could tip the balance for them. So, and did you get any support as a child? Was anybody aware of it?
No, I think, you know, I'm not lamenting the health service or any sort of knowledge around it, but it felt like it was still quite sort of, I was saying its infancy. People have obviously suffered depression through the ages, but in terms of having it actually diagnosed and being able to treat it and understand it, there was movements in the medical world to deal with it, but there wasn't anything from a mental health perspective or from a support base, or certainly I wasn't exposed to anything. I think the reason I'm sharing that is just to sort of give some context behind perhaps why I think like I think and how I operate like I operate. And like I said at the start, you know, understanding who I am, and the reason I'm sharing that is so people listening understand that I've had other experiences which have got me to a point where, you know, I've been able to sort of reflect on my own mindset and also work on inspirational situations through, you know, very difficult times. So I just wanted to add that context in to give some flavour as to why I am the way I am. And then I think, if in answering your question, I started having therapy Prior to, so that was another. So I started having therapy probably about 2 years after my son was 2 years old by this point.
Okay.
Because I realised I'd been suffering from some element of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
So I started that session probably 6 months prior to getting diagnosed, just so I felt like I was sort of coming to the end of that therapy. And I believe now, I'll share this in a minute. I then got told, so I said to my therapist, look, can I continue? Because I think I'm going to need you. And I still see her to this day. And I think one of the pieces of I say this quite a lot to my friends and my family, hopefully not in an annoying way, but the view that I believe that everyone should have some form of therapy. It doesn't have to be sitting down with a therapist. It could be self-help books, self-improved books. It could be podcasts. I think a fantastic way of reflecting on yourself. But any way that you find to reflect on who you are and how you operate, I think is of extreme value to you as a person, and helps you understand why you are and who you are and how you deal with the world in front of you.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think people often, put therapy in a bucket of you only go and get it if there's something broken, but actually there's many reasons behind why having a therapist or a coach can be super supportive, particularly because they can give you an external perspective and also help you find the tools to uncover what you want in life and what will help you personally going forward, to make the changes that are going to serve you rather than hurt you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on that point, I think in the same way in the 60s, sort of physical health started to become prominent with people going jogging or jogging. But yeah, people started jogging, and suddenly there was still a lot of like, oh, why are people doing this? What's wrong with people?
Yeah.
And I think that we're at the start of that mental health journey. I think in 50, 60 years' time, it'll be absolute commonplace that everyone has
their own personal health trainer, brain health trainer.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. Like it's things like what you're doing that I think will continue to promote and outline the value of having a healthy brain. And we're very focused on having a healthy body, and I think we're all, in this day and age, we're all very well versed on what the upshot and all the benefits come from having a good exercise program or a good outlet for physical activity. We all are aware, and I think the same will happen with mental health. I think we just need to keep pushing these boundaries down the road, kicking the can down the road, right? And the more people that become aware of it, the more value people get from it. The better and the more positive I think society will be as a result.
No, I think it's so important, and I love the fact that you had that support from a therapist perspective at a time when you really needed somebody as well, to help you on this new challenge of overcoming stage 4, terminal cancer, and finding a way through emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually, with the spiritual, strength of your children as your focus to get well. It was beyond you. It was you giving them a life with them, which was so important. So how did you? What was the first real step that you took when you started this journey of healing, as you worked through the cancer treatment?
Was the first year. I think, as I said, I sort of had that month after I've been sort of told about people sharing their views and their opinions. In the most part, very supportive. I think you also go through a process when you get told this news. It kind of refines your outlook or reinforces your outlook. You may already have something actually. I now 100% agree that is the way I should, or that's reinforced my view to be able to be more like that. I think I took stock. I think it was a case of like, what are the touch points that can help me here? So diet, exercise, lifestyle, mental health, support networks, and sort of pulling all those things together, trying to find what worked for me. So I still see myself nutritionist. I took up golf because physically I wasn't perhaps able. I used to play football. I wasn't in a position or physical conditions to continue playing football, so I took up golf. So it was a more gentle way, but somewhere that would guarantee I would get out once or twice a week. We got a dog, again from a therapeutic
Right.
perspective, and he's been a wonderful addition to the family. So we added things into our life that we felt would give us greater support, more reason to live. I think I say to my wife on a regular basis, it's all about reminding ourselves why we're alive, what things drive us. And I try and do something fun every day, something that I go, I really enjoyed that. That sounds quite selfish. I'm not. I am.
No, not at all. Because life is for living, right? So,
Right.
we've got to live our life and do something that brings us joy each day. Otherwise, our brains naturally default to the negative,
Yeah.
because that's how we survive. But we need to find joy in every day, and joy in the things that we do. And we might not find it always,
Yeah.
but having that outlook, that positive outlook, to find something that's enjoyable. So when you get to the end of the day, you can go, today was a great day.
Yeah. Or
Is
today
really important.
today I achieved something, or today I enjoyed doing this, or today I just got out of bed. Like, it doesn't have to be. Some days you can accept that you're not at your peak of your powers, and I do have days. I'd say probably 90% of the time I keep this positive demeanor that you're seeing right now, and I have moments, hours, minutes where I just have a really low moment, or I feel really
Yeah.
sad about something, or I'm triggered by something.
Yeah.
And I just have to feel it. I try and go through that and just accept that I'm not feeling great, and I don't put any
Yeah.
pressure on myself, and I live through that. And then I come out the other side, and I'm back in the right frame of mind. I'm like, okay, we go again. And what can I do tomorrow to just give me a little boost? I think about, maybe it could be as simple as just going for a dog walk, through to a game of golf, through to going to see a very good friend, whatever it may be. But it's about trying to find that balance in my life all the time of why I want to live.
What's going to get you up the next morning to look forward to, and what did you achieve in the day that was joyful? Do you know, I love the way that you drew on the 5 pillars of brain health there, because you talked about, how am I feeling, what can I do? So feelings, actions, what can I do, connections, you got yourself a dog, who can I connect with that's going to bring me joy? Thoughts, what thoughts am I having, and how can I deal with those thoughts? What ways can I bring some joy, in terms of any self-talk that might be going on in the background? And also looking at your surroundings, and how you can use those surroundings. Getting outside is a massive thing, isn't it? For helping your brain health. Get out and connect with nature. And if you can't do it in the normal way that you were doing it because of your circumstances, because you don't have the energy, find another way.
Adjust. You've got to. Life is just one big problem solving game, isn't it? You just constantly trying to solve problems, and it's just another adjustment. It's just another, okay, that's not going to work anymore, but there's other things that I enjoy doing outside. So what do they look like? I'm very fortunate. I live 500 yards away from the beach, so quite often I just go down to the beach for 20-30 minutes with a coffee. Feeling that level of, I guess, also reminding yourself of the level of insignificance you are in the greater structure of this universe, and reflecting on that when you look out at the ocean or the sea, and you're like,
no, I'm completely with you on that. I absolutely love, for me it's mountains, and also the ocean, the power of the waves, and that they're constant. There's a constant, isn't there, of ebb and flow and movement, and just knowing that we have to make the most of the time that we have on this planet, because it's such a short period of time compared to the earth, that we have to make the most of it. So I'd love to know, just could you go through your journey as to how did you get through the treatment? What were the real changes that really helped you with altering the outcome of your diagnosis?
Well, from a mental perspective or physical perspective?
Let's start with mental. We'll go through all of the 4 quadrants of well-being.
Okay. So from a mental perspective, like I said, I think you start to, again, you adjust. Like, you start to go, okay, this is my new reality. I could lament and I could feel sorry for myself. And I'm not saying I didn't have periods where I did lament and feel sorry for myself, but I also put a lot of energy into going, right, okay, you still want to be here. We don't. I don't have faith. Is not part of my.
That's okay.
And so I don't really have a view on why we're here. What is the point of it? So for me, I've always worked to a mantra of just enjoy it as much as you possibly can. And then you reveal to me at some point, but Right now it's not, and then for me it's just enjoy as much. So again, so how do I get back to that? How do I get back to enjoying this existence despite this, pretty negative news?
And looking at, did you strategize, think about your future and what do I want my future to look like? Is that something that you did?
Yeah. Look, I mean, look, so let me sort of break it down in terms of my sort of pillars that I have 5 pillars that I judge my life by, which is family, friends, health, work, and financial. So I look across it and I go, right, financially, and I accept my privilege here. I've worked well and earned enough money to be in a position where I can live relatively comfortably, and I accept that privilege. And I feel very fortunate that I have that position to start from. So financially, I'm okay. Right, health, obviously, that's a big negative at the moment. Then, what was my family? My family setup is great. I love my wife, love my kids, got very good relationships. Now, I had a bit of a sort of troubled relationship with my father during my sort of teenage years, which definitely now I understand relates more back to my mum's depression. But my wider family is, I have, for the most part, good relationships. Then looking at my friendships, I had to be quite ruthless. I removed some of my friends, people who I felt were a negative energy.
And that's so important, is, you have to surround yourself with people that lift you up and not pull you down.
Like beyond belief. I think that is so important. I think the impact of negative energy, I say it on a constant, like, even if my kids are being sad or miserable, I'm like, guys, we don't need the negative energy. Come on, let's talk about it. Let's fix the problem. Let's work it out. Or let's just let things happen smoothly, but let's not bring the negativity. And I think that is, that was a big part of it. So like I said, I kind of refined my friend network. I don't mean that to sound callous, but I felt it was important that I had the right people around me. And I could rely on those people and be there for them, as well as them being there for me. And I forgot my last pillar. Work. Like my whole viewpoint of work has completely changed. Like prior to the diagnosis, I was sort of ambitious. I wanted to be, I was interested in job titles. I was interested in salary. I'm not interested in having. I want to be paid what I'm worth. That's fine. I'm not seeking to become X, Y, and Z. I don't want to become a managing director, CEO, or whatever, or run my own business, which at one point I did. That doesn't matter to me at all. I mean, work for me. And again, some people sort of go, just don't work. Like you're doing well, and I'm like, I accept. I appreciate that viewpoint, but for me, work brings a real sort of value and purpose to my day. It defines me differently. I didn't want to become defined by cancer. That was another big part of it. I wanted to be. I still wanted to be me. I wanted people to know me for me, rather than being like, oh, there's the guy with cancer. I wanted to. So I felt having a job was important in that. Being able to define yourself with something else, or have other thoughts in your head, albeit in my head. I sometimes think they're quite trivial compared to the experience I'm going through. But at the same time, I still think there's a lot of value in that, being able to put your head into something.
Absolutely.
So I think I sort of addressed it from those 5 perspectives and went, right, these are the things I need to address. So with work, I left the company I was working for, went to do a job where I was home based, where I had more control of my working time and my social time. I moved to a 4-day working week with a view that I just wanted a better balance in my life. And all those things have come to fruition and been really smart moves for me. It's allowed me to have time. So once a week on a Monday or a Friday, I have time to myself.
Brilliant.
Go and play golf, take the dog for a walk, whatever it may be.
To recharge and reboot and reflect.
But it also means I can still give all my energy at the weekends to the kids and to my wife.
Brilliant.
Likewise. So again, just doing all these things, sort of just trying to bit by bit. And this happened over the course of probably 18 months, 2 years. It's not like at all. It's all sorted. I've had to have, you alluded to it earlier, but I had to have a lot of difficult conversations with existing relationships. So, part of my therapy has been focusing on my relationship with both my parents, my relationship with my brother, relationship with my wife, my kids, and my best friends, and sort of refining those and going, well, I find this behaviour or this feeling creates resentment. I want to remove that. How do I remove that? What do I do? What do I do? I can't just put it all on someone else and say it's their fault or they're the problem. What am I doing to create that? Why am I feeling resentful? So, worked on a lot of strategies to remove a lot of that resentment, remove behaviours such as trying to be less passive aggressive. Socially, I was conditioned to be quite authoritative. Like my dad was quite an authoritative parent. How did I don't want to be an authoritative parent. How do I unchain that? How do I become the person I want to be, not just copying what someone else did. So again, how do I look at that, and what do I do to change that? And so I guess there's a myriad of things that I've sort of tried to put in place and reflect on and go, yeah, I like that part of my life, great, we'll carry on doing that, but actually this part of my life I would like to address, what I'm going to do about it. And that will either come in the form of mental health, exercise, nutrition, diet, all those things. I've added a lot of supplements into my diet as well, just to support what I'm doing. So it's
a huge shift.
Yeah, I think a huge shift over a gradual period of time. I didn't sort of go all guns blazing. I think you have to work out what's right for you.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. And I love the way you talked about your 5 pillars. It falls into what I call the 4 sectors of life.
Yeah.
Which is our relationships, which you mentioned, your family and your friends is the first sector. And it's so important that we look at what do we want out of those relationships, and is my behavior getting me what I want? So we do all of this on a 1-page miracle sheet, we call it. Is to look at all of the sectors of life. And then you talked about your work life, and you could include community there.
Yeah.
And is work giving me what I want? Yeah. And the answer for you was no.
Yeah.
So what do I need to do to change it? Yeah. And then you looked at your finances. That was tickety-boo. So no real action
within reason. Yes.
To be taken there, other than finding the right job that suited you. Yeah. And then finally you looked at your self-care, your personal health and well-being, and what changes did you need to make from a healthcare perspective, and you obviously looked at your emotional health, your physical health, your mental health, and your spiritual health. And by spiritual, I'm not talking connecting to a god or anything. I'm talking about connecting to your core values.
Absolutely right.
What gives you purpose and passion in life, and how you want to connect with other people, and maybe connect with the planet. And you talked about connecting with nature, and how can you get the most out of those connections to you and to the external world that is going to bring you the growth outcomes you want personally.
Yeah,
from a self-care perspective. I'm really pleased you went through all of that and you managed to find the answers as what do I need to do to help me get what I want? What behaviors do I need to adopt? What behaviors do I need to change? And that you mentioned that you needed to fix some relationship struggles that were, dynamics weren't quite working and getting you what you wanted, and quite serving you. So obviously we, as you quite rightly say, that you were not ever going to do that in a one hit go, because you have to address them gradually, step by step. What was the biggest needle mover for you on that journey? What did you find that helped you the most? Was it the taking time out, giving yourself permission to have a day back? Or what was it?
It's a really good question. What was the biggest? I think it's.
Or was it incremental shift?
I don't know. It's because it's not quantifiable. You can't just go. I can't give you tangible data and go, when I started this started to improve. I think let's bring this back to the medical, the health, the physical situation of my cancer. I think one of the big things for me is someone said this to me for a long time in my life, but it's progress over perfection, right? You can't get to this perfect. The perfect doesn't exist anyway. Even though I'm constantly evolving and trying to change and get better, new things will come into my life that will change how I view something, and I'll need to address it or need to work on it. But progress over perfection. I think the other thing that was happening for me physically is that whilst I'd started my chemotherapy, which I still have, so I've had 120 sessions of chemotherapy now. I have it every 2 weeks, and have done since I was first diagnosed. I've had radiotherapy. I've had 15 operations, if you include last Tuesday's, to remove the 33 tumours I had in my liver. And I think what happened after 3 months, I went to see my oncologist, and he was like, "Look, good news. We've got a heck of a long way to go, and it's still not a great outlook, but your tumours start to shrink, and the blood marker, which is called the blood CEA level, which is used to measure colon or liver cancer, is reduced. It's gone down from what it was. So you're like, okay, well, right, okay. So mentally for me, that was a really big shift for me to be able to go, great, there is progress. There is actually some hope. Everything that I've believed, in the sort of mental approach, the shifts in my sort of physical and my lifestyle have had an impact. I don't know by what percentage and which has been the most impactful. And I think that varies depending on who you're talking to. My nutritionist will say she had a big part to play in it. My therapist will say she had a big part to play in it. My oncologist will say he had the biggest part to play in it. It's not a competition, is it?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's a system, isn't it? So the system, your body is a whole system. So you can make adjustments, but ultimately the system talks to every part of your system talks to the other. Your brain's connected to your gut's connected to your liver. So when you start optimizing all of them and finding the right balance so that they can talk effectively and have the right positive conversations internally, like you were saying, let's be positive, then the system's going to work. They're going to work with itself to make you better, rather than working against it. So I think they all of the steps that you've taken have been really important, but at an integrated level has what's been I think the needle mover is you looked at everything.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And I think with the sort of overarching watchword of progress, like everything, I've made progress with my financial outcome, I've made progress with my health, I've made progress with my friends, with my family, with my work, these things. So and then my physical health started to make progress as well. So I'm like, okay, if I keep working down this road, then there's hope. There's still hope for me. And I think I know they say sometimes hope kills, but in this instance, hope has kept me alive, and I've driven off that. And like I said, we feed off every day I wake up because I want to be there for my kids and do everything I can, because of my own childhood experience where I felt I didn't have a mum for 5 years, and that had quite a significant impact on me as a person. Now, I've talked to my mum about this, and and that's part of this process, is that you speak to these people and share this feeling and go, look, I understand the impact of what happened. There was no ill intent on your part. I don't love you any less as a result of it, but this is the things that it's made me, which is I'm a people pleaser. I have anxious attachment. I have things that I have to learn to deal with that I wish I didn't have to deal with, but I do, right? And that's fine. And it's not about lamenting that and going, well, it's your fault, Mum. You made me a people pleaser, and all I want to do is make other people happy, and I don't want to make myself happy. And actually going, well, actually, how can I use people pleasing to an advantage, but also be aware that I'm being a people pleaser sometimes to my disadvantage, and try to move or reduce the disadvantage situations and increase the advantage situations. So it's not about, it's about taking responsibility as well. I think that's a big part of it, and it's something I don't really talk much about, but I think having that ability to go, look, no one else is going to change this for me. That's another part of my mum's depression, because our dynamic switched. I became her parent. I became the person that looked at her. And all of a sudden, I've never been a person that's needed my parental help. I've never been like, oh my God, something bad's happened to me at work, or something bad's happened to me. I've fallen down the stairs. Something, I need your help. Mum, I need your help, Dad. I don't operate like that. I rely on myself for help. It's like, okay, I need to contact such a person to get in contact with a hospital, or to contact an ambulance, or whatever it may be. So I rely on myself. So I think taking that responsibility and not looking around you going, hopefully someone's going to help me here.
And I think that's a really good point, because Tanner Amen says our responsibility is our ability to respond. So it's important that we own what's within our control, and our life is within our control. And yes, you testament, a fantastic testament to the power to take responsibility for overcoming, a diagnosis that some people are not able to overcome for whatever reason, but actually having that focus on I can take control. This is my time. I'm going to make shifts in my lifestyle that is going to serve me over the long term and give me a long term as well. And what I find fascinating about your story is, you know, your diagnosis almost forced you into a position to pause, reflect, and go, okay, what I've done to date has not necessarily served me.
Yeah.
You know, yes, some things have, but some things haven't. What can I do? What's within my control to make those changes? And how can I make them in a way that's going to serve my family and my kids and give them hope for the future? It's not just about giving yourself hope. It's about giving hope to other people as well.
Yeah. It's absolutely that. It's also acknowledging your role still exists. You're not just suddenly become all about you, and you still got to be. You know, I think I have a saying that I've sort of carried with me again from quite early on from doing a bit of reading, which is what's happened. It's not what happens to you in life that defines you. It's how you react that people will remember you by. And I think that sticks with me. It always sticks with me. It's not like, okay, I got cancer, I died, I didn't have any choice. Like, no, I do have choice. I got cancer. I was told I was going to die. I want to prove that wrong. I want to still be here for as long as possible and enjoy this as long as possible. And that's how I want to be remembered. I want to be remembered for being someone who believed that, you know, the impossible was possible.
Yeah.
I think my eldest, he's a little bit of a geek. He loves picking up on little sayings and things, and he often says, nothing's impossible until it becomes possible. Oh, I got that the wrong way around. Nothing is possible until it becomes. No, nothing is impossible until it becomes possible. I can't remember. It's something along that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, brilliant.
Things do become possible, and I believe in that. So again, it works for me, and it's got me to a situation where I'm feeling like there is still a lot of hope for me.
And I think, you know, for me, the saying I like is the only person's opinion that matters as to whether you can or can't do something is your own.
Yeah.
So you own that decision. You own the thought process. You own the choice as to whether it's possible or it isn't possible. And that choice will define your future outcome. You chose to say, I'm not gonna listen to that diagnosis. There is a future for me, and I'm going to make it happen beyond the year. And I'm going to blimmin' well make it happen for as long as practically possible. What do I need to do to make that happen? Rather than dwelling on what isn't going to happen. And nobody knows what the future holds for any of us.
No, absolutely right.
You know, so predicting the worst, which is obviously what medicine
has to do. It has to predict the worst.
It isn't the future. It's just a prediction.
Yeah, exactly.
And you choose your future, not the words that you're told.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. I think that's something I would probably be adding to my own little bank of sayings and things that I now and again just go back into and just go, yeah, okay, I like that. I'll be keeping that one.
So I'd love to transition to some fun facts, because I know this has been quite a deep conversation. And we're talking about the fun facts as the 5 pillars of brain health: feelings, actions, connections, thoughts, and surroundings. So for you, let's just dive into a couple of them. Connecting, and we've talked a lot about this, connection to yourself. What is the most important value that guides you in life?
Most important value. I think probably for me, it's difficult because I don't believe there's just one thing, but my current watchword, my thing that really I feel helps refocus my brain is perspective. I think perspective is a really positive way of me addressing my situation. You know, people will go, it's not fair that you have to go in for another operation, for example. I'm like, well, some people go into an operation with a much less of a chance of coming out of it. I know I'm going to go into this and come out of it, be absolutely well. I'll be fine. Whereas they just haven't removed the tumor, so you can. Yeah,
so the outcome for you is going to be better than the going in outcome. The going in situation.
Look, anything, like every situation. I remember, and this is perhaps a little bit close to the bone. I remember having a really deep conversation with my wife 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm not quite sure why we were sort of pitting one against the other, but it was kind of like I was feeling a bit sorry for myself, and I sort of said, I don't think there's anything worse than being told you're going to die. And she contested that and said, I think there is. I think there's multiple things that are worse. I'm not necessarily going to delve into them, but there's
No, that's all right.
Situations that people have experienced. She'd just been reading a book where it'd been quite a harrowing experience for the person involved, or the lead character. And I was sort of contesting it, and I sort of, after about an hour and a half contesting it, to which point we both went, why are we contesting this? Like, it's not a competition. But we both reflected on it. And I think that was kind of the dawning moment for me to go, well, hang on a minute, there is actually, it's whilst it was quite a conflicting conversation, we both got quite heated. I think that dawned on me that point where it's just people across the world will have far worse situations than you. I'm very far, I've got good medical care around me. I've got an oncology session. Like, the network and living in the UK provides you with a lot of security in this regard. And there are places in the world where people will get diagnosed with stage 2 cancer, and it may only be in there. So I'm not trying to belittle any cancer, because any cancer is difficult, but it's something that's less aggressive as a cancer and in theory more treatable.
Yeah.
But they don't have that access to medical care. Well, would I rather be in my situation or be in their situation? I'd rather be in my situation, because at least there's a chance they can do something about it. In their situation, they've got no hope.
And you've got that network, like you said, you've got that network around you to support you through whatever life throws at you, if you're prepared to throw it back.
Yeah, it's a take. I think it's just constantly trying to take stock of the situation and go, look, it could be worse. It could, and if it was worse, will I still be able to deal with it? I'd give it a go for sure. But I kind of, it's an odd one, because obviously it's not lucky that I got stage 4 cancer. It's pretty awful that I got stage 4 cancer. But at the same time, I kind of, and I think I allude to this in a couple of things, but I allude to the fact that it is enhanced my life in so many ways. And I got, again, take that perspective and go, well, actually, I've got better relationships with the people I love. I have a better relationship with work, because I put more energy into what I deem now much more important things, which is relationships, connection. I've got a better outlook on my financial outlook. I'm not trying to make loads of money. I'm not trying to do X, Y, and Z. I'm happy. I've got money that means I can live a life that I enjoy. And I think having all those points of perspective give you a greater perspective of going, right, okay, it could be worse, and therefore, if it could be worse, we can do this. We can manage our way through this, and we can get to the other side. And I think that's probably been my key value. It might not be my key value, but it feels like my key value right now.
No. I mean, if that's what comes to mind first, and I think it's a great key value, because, I always think of perspective as you can look outside and look at the weather, and it could be raining, and you think, I don't want to go outside. But actually, for those that have got kids, rain is a brilliant thing, because it means you get puddles.
Yeah.
And so your perspective shifts depending on your age in life, but also what you want to make of the environment, the situation that you're in, to best effect, to use it to your advantage. And the fact that you've used the diagnosis to your advantage, and now living a much more fulfilling life, and have a much more wholesome, happy, joyful life, where you are aware of all of the things, all of those 5 pillars you talked about, your family, your friends, your work, your health. I've forgotten what the last one was, and your finances. That you can look at all of those and go, I am happy. Across all of those, and I'm looking for ways I can bring joy, and I think that's really important.
And if those things are looking, I think, sorry, going back to the perspective, the other thing I think that's brilliant about is you take on other people's perspective. I think the more you broaden your network, the more you broaden your own connections with people, the more you see things differently. And I've got a friend who's not been able to walk from the age of about 16, 17. And I sort of sometimes look out the window and go, oh, it's not very nice today. I don't want to take the dog for a walk in this. And I just think to him and just go, well, he doesn't ever have the option of taking the dog for a walk. I mean, there's ways of him dealing with that, sure. But the actual physical action of just getting up and walking, he doesn't have the option of doing. And again, that's just perspective where you go, well, thank goodness I can, and so therefore I will, and therefore I will, try and take it with it, that frame of mind of going, well, I'm fortunate to be able to do this, and it's something, every human takes for granted the things they have, and then they forget about the things they don't have, or they lament the things they don't have, and it's such a strange. I mean, you will probably know much better, more about it than I do, but I think it's trying to sort of broaden that outlook and go, it's not just your perspective. There's so many different perspectives, and in every situation you'll find yourself in, you sit around the table with 10 people. 10 people have a different perspective on something, and it's interesting to know what those perspectives are, so you can learn from it, take from it, and utilize it for yourself.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you talked about when we talked earlier, you talked about hope. So you started with, I hope I can. Conversation in your head. I hope I can do this. I hope I can do that. And now you've got to the conversation. I can do this. So you've got a shift. And now you've just mentioned to me, I will do this. And the self-talk that we have rumbling inside our head is so powerful, because our thoughts influence our behaviors, our thoughts influence our autonomic system. So how we respond, it influences the emotions we have, and the conversations we have with ourselves internally, which is important we verbalize externally, so we know what we're talking to ourselves about, and bring it to our conscious awareness, is really important to win that mental battle that might be going on inside your mind.
That's I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but you're right, my language does change throughout that, because when you first start, you hope, because you've never done it before, and you're like, I hope I can do it, I'm not sure I can, but I believe I've got a good chance. And then it changes, it starts to change, and I think now you've said that, or framed it in that way, it's made me refer back on a point when I was probably about 1.5 years ago, and my wife suddenly said, I've noticed that you're a lot more, the language you're using is a lot more confident, you're a lot more, you feel like you're capable of doing this, rather than thinking you can do this or potentially going to be able to do this. You're now saying you can do it, and that's a big shift. And it's I framed it like that in my head, but you're absolutely right, Ruth. It's a great way of putting it.
And thank you. And language really has power, and I think we underestimate the power that language has in our mind, in terms of our mindset shift, from a brain health perspective, but also the power it has on our body, because what we say to ourselves is going to be our perspective, going back to your core value. If our perspective on life is it's done and dusted, what they say is true, and I'm just going to accept that, then we'll start telling ourselves things that will stop our body from having the fight that it's entitled to have. So having those conversations, those positive conversations, and we talk about ants from a brain health perspective, automatic negative thoughts, that we have about I think 30,000 thoughts or more every single day, and if the majority of them are negative, that's going to have a negative impact on your health potentially. You might not notice it in the near term, but in the long term it can have a huge impact on our health, 100%. Because it changes how our mind communicates with our body, and so on. And making that shift is really important.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it fundamentally shifts how you, whilst you may not notice it in the very short term, you will notice that you feel just not as happy. You'll notice that your general feeling towards people, towards things, is less positive. And if you keep feeding that negativity, or if you keep feeding that thought process of negative thoughts, then it's probably only one way, isn't it? Which is
and it's hard, and as you know, emotions have power. You talked about having a heated conversation with your wife about your diagnosis, because our emotions have a huge amount of energy associated with it, and surround yourself with people who have the energy and the emotions that really lift you up, so you can ride that wave of positivity and not be sucked into bongo sliding, for those that know surfing, and getting trashed by a wave of negativity, rather than riding it in a way that's going to serve you. So negative emotions are okay if you leverage them to help you rather than to hurt you. So anger is a good emotion, because we can use it to help us really propel ourselves forward with gusto, and really express and release, that kind of fight release that anger forces you to have. And you can do the release in whatever way serves you. So I'd love to go back into the next fun facts question, because this is a great lead on to it, is thoughts. So this is the fourth pillar, thoughts. What stupid, crazy thought have you had that you've often told yourself in the past that isn't true?
I think when I answered this, I think I put based on the myth that you eat. Apparently, you eat 8 spiders a year in your sleep. It's always really funny. The idea of going to sleep. I'm not a fan of spiders. The idea of going to sleep and the possibility that I've consumed a spider in my sleep really bothers me. Anyway, I've discovered since that it's not true. But for probably at least 30 years of my life, I've been working on the premise that I've been swallowing spiders, and I've not enjoyed it at all.
And you haven't. And I wonder if that's affected you. Has it ever affected you going to sleep? That thought.
Yeah, particularly my sort of childhood. I'd say sort of before I became into like sort of 9, 10, 11. That sort of I've watched Arachnophobia.
And that triggered you.
And that's true. And then off the back of that, I'd already been told that apparently we consume. And that I was fine. And then when I watched Arachnophobia, the idea that I was consuming something that naive, silly as a child, I go, what if I consume it and then it kills me from the inside out? It's just ridiculous thoughts.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, that's
that's a brilliant. Honestly, that's a brilliant one, because the reason I think it's great that you've brought it to the show is the fact that we tell ourselves things when we're kids.
Yes.
And it's like a broken record player, and we play it again.
Yep.
And again and again and again. And it isn't until you either get a therapist or you read a self-help book and you learn about ants, automatic negative thoughts, is that you can learn you can squash them. So you don't have an ant infestation in your head, and you're getting rid of all of those ants, like squashing all the spiders that you probably thought you were eating that you're totally not. And making sure that you take back control of your mindset, and you're not playing these crazy thoughts around in your head all the time.
Correct. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yes. Yeah. I'd still probably say there's work in progress there, but I think for the most part, in terms of squashing ants, I think that's it perfectly summarises it, doesn't it?
You have to get your little anteater. I don't have the toy with me. It's downstairs, but get the anteater and start hoovering up those ants inside your head. But you have to write the thoughts down. You have to say them out loud as what's most important, to acknowledge that you actually got them in your head in the first place.
I think, look, you're absolutely right. It is, and again, that's a process, isn't it? You don't just suddenly go, right, I've got 100 thoughts, boom, there they are, and I need to deal with them. Like, again, it will happen gradually and over time, but these things, will come to roost, and you've got to work a way of dealing with it.
And I think it's really important here is to reflect on the fact that, and I know we talked about it a little bit in terms of your past, how you've overcome trauma in your life, is that trauma stacks, and it's important that we get to the root cause of the trauma, because trauma grows like a tree. So in the same as other situations like physical trauma, if you don't address the seed of the trauma early on, that seed will take root, as it did for you when you were a child with your mum's depression. And it grows and grows and grows, and nobody was able to tell you how to chop that tree down so that the seed was no longer there, or dig it up.
Exactly.
And so when your son was born, Wilf, you already had a layer of trauma, so your brain was already vulnerable, and the seed grew the tree grew even stronger and grew more branches, because you now had other layers of trauma. And then obviously what we know, although still science in progress, is that trauma can often trigger changes in our immune system. It can trigger changes in how our body reacts, and actually can be the seed of chronic illnesses, such as the one that you've experienced and are continuing to to battle
Yep.
if we don't deal with the past trauma, which thankfully
Yep.
you've been able to do through your therapist, and I know it's still work in progress.
Yep.
And it's great you can acknowledge that, because we never don't necessarily have the opportunity to overcome it fully, but it's to learn how to manage it and how to deal with it and leverage, like you say, your people pleasing to best effect, and know when it's not going to serve you, and know why it's not going to serve you, and how you can deal with that. But we have to do that deep work in order to give ourselves permission to release the emotions, to release the anger, to release the thoughts, and understand what those thoughts are. Like you said, the spider thing, understand them and learn that they're not true, and squash those ants as well.
Yeah, I think that's, and truthfully, ever since I connected with you, Ruth, I think I've sort of thought more and more about this. This is kind of something that you've alerted me to or made me aware of.
Yeah.
And I do wonder how much of my progress has been made as a result of me, some would potentially argue too late down the line, but dealing with the trauma of my life, like not my life, but like of incidents throughout my life, and actually addressing them and speaking to them, opening up about them, understanding why it's impacted me and how it's impacted me.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that has played a huge impact in terms of where I am and why I'm here today. And again, look, various people would say different things, and because there's no tangible data to prove otherwise, we have to just work on the principle that they've all helped. But I am becoming, I'm more and more interested, and I've started doing a bit more reading around it, because I am fascinated by the idea that it could be the fact that I'm resolving, or like you said, you can't remove trauma. It's happened and it exists, and it's more a result of that, but you can learn to deal with it. And I wonder if, because I've started to learn to deal with it, I'm also getting better. Like, it can't be a coincidence, or maybe it can. Maybe my oncology scholar, well, it's actually still all about your chemotherapy and your radiotherapy that's meant that you're still here, and I'm not. Well, I don't know, but I believe.
I think it's a really good point, though, is because your chemotherapy deals with the present situation, which is the fact that you had cancer. And we talked about when we first spoke, as my dad's mum had cancer. She ended up breast cancer. It spread everywhere throughout the body, and that was a long time ago when the treatments weren't available. But she had a very tumultuous childhood experience. She was accepted a place in art school, Royal College of Arts in London. Her father wouldn't allow her to go, and because she was a woman, and so her passion that she had in life was kind of taken away from her. And then my dad was born very premature, just like your son. So she had all of that to contend with, and he was born right at the beginning of the war. And so she had all of that to deal with, plus there were other family matters that she had to contend with as well. And I think, we'll never know, of course, but I think when we have layers of trauma that are quite severe, but we don't address them, they can express themselves within your body in ways. It can be completely different for everybody how it gets expressed. But there's work done by Gabor Mate when the body says no, is that we really do need to take that time. And I love that you've done this, is to look at the 4 quadrants of our well-being, as our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, our mental well-being, and our spiritual well-being. And for you, your emotions were tied up with your past and the emotions around the diagnosis, obviously your traumas that you mentioned. Your physical well-being is looking at the actions that you could take to improve your lifestyle interventions. Your mental well-being with your therapist and squashing the ants that are rumbling around in your head, and all of that kind of stuff, and giving looking strategically. And then obviously your spiritual well-being is connecting with your core values and beliefs, what you want in life, and connecting with the people that you love, and living a life of purpose to be there for your kids. And I think I know we talked earlier, what makes the biggest difference? Well, we'll never know, but you have to look at everything. You have to look at yourself holistically from an integrated perspective and address all of those 4 quadrants to give yourself the best chance.
I truly believe that. Yeah, I think that is, whilst you can pinpoint and you can highlight certain things that have had what you believe to be very big impacts on you, I think actually I can't help but just keep coming back to the idea that it's just if you look at everything, or as much of it as possible, you give yourself the best chance of addressing the points of worry, concern, negativity, whatever it may look like, to move yourself forward and move yourself out of that situation. So yeah, I think you've summarised it beautifully.
And what would your one piece of advice be? Because you're just a fantastic survival story for yourself, and and offering so much hope for people who do get given a really abrupt diagnosis where they think life is coming to a close, and actually for you it's almost a new beginning, a brand new chapter. What one piece of advice would you give anybody who's been given a diagnosis of cancer?
It's again an absolute brilliant question. I think look, we've hit on a couple of quite a few sort of watchwords: hope, belief, perspective, attitude and outlook to how you want to change. I think belief, I think, is probably the biggest thing. Maybe it's not, but I feel like right now I feel like that is the sort of the watchword, the operative word. I think it's the word that perhaps best encapsulates everything. In that, even if it's just a small bit of belief, if there is some part of you that is going, I've got a chance, or I can do something here, or I can change this, or I can address this, or I believe in myself to some level, that there are changes that can be made, and you may not make all of them, and they may not be all perfectly concluded or resolved, but it's the idea that you are doing that, the idea that you're being proactive. And I think, I speak to a lot of people who've had cancer diagnoses, and not for any reason other than just a friend of mine been telling me that someone's been diagnosed, and would I speak to them and just share my view or story with them. And I think there is a definite difference between the people who I feel have a more positive outlook and the people who are more lamenting their situation. And I think it's belief. I think the difference between the two of those sort of, if I'm putting them into two pots, the difference between them is one believes and the other one doesn't. And I'm not saying that's easy, and I'm not judging that person for not being able to believe, because it's horrible. And it's a really, it's something that for whatever reason, my brain is wired in a way that I can deal with this. Like, there are things in life that I'm not sure I would be able to deal with. There are situations or traumas or experiences that I sort of look at and go, could I actually contend with that? I'm not sure. This situation I can. My brain is wired in a certain way. I understand myself in a certain way, and I adopt an approach to life that suits this particular trauma. And I think, going back to the point, I think it's just underpinning everything with belief. I think I believe. I
believe. And I think that's really important, because often they say is that, believe you can, and you're halfway there. Yeah. And the fact that you have that hope to believe that anything is possible, and you're not defined by people's words or statements. You define you.
I mean, we're quite good as a society at bigging up people who have that bit. Like you quite often hear sports people or people who've gone on to be huge success, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, whatever, through to sports people who've were told I was never going to make it, I was never good enough. People didn't believe in me. I always believed in myself. Like, it's trying to pick out some of these sort of telltale signs in society and life. We do get told this on a regular basis. People tell us, like, how did you get it? And people go, I just believed in myself. And it's quite a sort of, well, I believed in myself and I didn't make it. So, what's he on about? But you didn't believe in yourself. You obviously didn't.
Yeah.
Didn't back yourself to be able to accomplish that.
Yeah.
And it's backing up what you're saying as well. It's being able to go, I did believe in it and I did it, and I'm going to continue doing it. And I hope I can encourage and support people to do it as well. And
do I think it's really good, because from from the Wellbeing Academy, the Wellbeing Warrior Academy that I have, is that there's like 4 steps. You've got a dream.
Yep.
You've got to believe. You've got a plan, and then you've got to do. Dream, believe, plan, and do. And belief is such an important part of it, because if you don't believe, you won't plan what the next steps are.
Yeah.
And it could be that just the first step, and you won't do the work. And the fact that you had that really strong belief in yourself that you can choose your future was just brilliant. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your fabulous story of, you know, what's there to give hope to your family, hope to your friends, and hope to so many people who are struggling with cancer or any other chronic illness. I just really applaud you for really having that belief in yourself that you can change the outcome, and you really have 5 years on. Absolutely amazing. How can people get hold of you?
So people can get hold of me on Instagram at Mark-Edmondson, or at that's my LinkedIn profile. My apologies. And my Instagram is at Elsvenos. Little sub story, but my nickname is Sven. So yes, Elsvenos at Instagram, or Mark-Edmondson on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Thank you. And just thank you so much for coming on the show. It's, you know, this show is all about brain health, unchaining your pain, and it sounds to me that you certainly managed to do that in spades.
Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's been a genuine honour and a pleasure. It's very cathartic and beneficial for me to be able to talk about things like this as well. Like I said, you've already given me 3 or 4 new perspectives and new outlooks that I'm going to start to adopt. So I get real value from this too. And thank you to everyone who's listened. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate your time. And believe.
Thank you. You're most welcome, Mark. Best of luck for the future, and I look forward to staying connected. If there's anything I can do to help you or others that are in your network who need support, then please don't hesitate to reach out. This show is all about brain health, unchaining your pain. You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better, and the outcome of that can be phenomenal. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to like and share this episode, and leave a review on my website or on Apple Podcasts. If you're looking for opportunities to optimise your brain health or unchain your pain from a past trauma, make sure you visit my website www.ruthmaryallan.com and use the code podcast10 at checkout to get 10% off all programs. And always remember, you are not stuck with the brain you have. You have the power to make it better. You have the power to unchain your pain and optimize your brain power and performance so that you can win back energy and time doing what you love.
Each episode of Brain Health Unchaining Your Pain with Dr. Ruth Allan is for educational and demonstration purposes only. The information shared in each episode should not be interpreted as medical advice. This episode should not be used to self-diagnose or self-treat any health, medical or physical condition. Do not use this episode to avoid going to your healthcare professional or to replace the advice they give you. Consult with a trusted healthcare professional before doing anything contained in this episode. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact www.ruthmaryallan.com/connect.